Hello YouTube, 'tis I, Root -1, and this is my submission for Challenge 27 of the weekly Kerbal Space Program Challenge. And this challenge, Challenge 27, was to go to a certain destination based on difficulty and take 21 Kerbals there and do a New Year's party for 2021, I guess, if that makes any sense. So I decided to go for the hard difficulty, and I'm going to Vall, the icy moon of Jewel, Minmus's icy cousin. And I finally got the DLC, which is pretty freaking awesome. And so now I'm using that Wolfhound engine, which I've heard great things about. It's got a pretty high TWR and a very high efficiency as well. So, as you can see, I'm just constructing the Vall lander, and you can see sort of the design I've gone for to take all sorts of Kerbals, many Kerbals. And what I sort of just did is I was going to make a gravity ring with like spokes and everything and like have it rotate and stuff, but I'm basically just a lazy person, and I saw that this worked and I just decided to go with that. So, we don't talk about how lazy I am on this channel, just in case you didn't know. I'm not lazy. Okay, so I think that was the only DLC part I used, weirdly enough, since I just got it. And as you can see, the interplanetary stage is just, a bunch of nuclear engines, essentially. So, on this mission, I royally screwed up, only once, I think, which is pretty good. And that, you'll see by the end, my re-entry was suboptimal, to say the least. So, as you can see, I'm almost done with the construction of this interplanetary vessel, and I had a lot of things to say, I promise you that, but now that it's the time to say them, of course, I've completely forgotten it. I should really start scripting these videos, You'd think that after all this time, I would, not be bad at this. I don't even know what I'm saying at this point. But anyway, yes, okay, I remember something I had to say. After this vessel changed a lot. It did not look like what you just saw in the vehicle assembly by the end. After doing my orbital testing off camera, I found that it did not work for a number of reasons. So I made some few modifications and then did my official launch, which you can see on screen right now. I didn't show the construction of my orbital launch vehicle just because it's the same every single time. It's just the... okay, so I could have used the Saturn V parts, and I tested out a design with the Saturn V parts, but I could not figure out which engines to put on the bottom of that, 5-thing adapter, 5-engine mount, whatever it's called. I could not, for the life of me, figure out which engines were supposed to go on the bottom of there. If somebody knows, I would love to hear it, because I would love to make those Saturn V parts work. So, as you can see, I have now reached space and deployed that fairing, and now I'm just completing my orbital insertion with all 21 Kerbals. You can see Jeb, Bob, and Bill down in the bottom there, and they're all happy. They're bouncing around and stuff. It's pretty great. So, as you can see, there was a little bit of tipping towards the end there, but it was fine. I just did another adjustment burn, which is about to happen in a hot second, split second. I don't need, yeah, you know what I'm trying to say. So then my my transfer to Jewel was pretty good. I was pretty happy with it. It took me actually a few tries because I royally messed up. In that I executed my burn, but then it was too long of a burn, so I ended up going back into Kerbin's atmosphere before I actually ejected from Kerbin. So, as you can see, I'm splitting up the burn into two different parts. One sort of just to elongate the orbit and sort of do half of the burn before I do the other half. And as you can see, I sort of cut it a little bit because it was a long burn. So you can see the start of it here, and then waiting for the cut. It's going to be really embarrassing if I didn't cut this one. Alright, I didn't cut this one. Never mind. It was the next one that I cut that was actually ejecting from Kerbal. So, now if we just wait for this really long burn to complete, then I will time warp around to my periapsis and complete that second burn. So, here you go. You can see me making a maneuver node to eject and get my orbital height all the way out to Joule. And there you go. Just time warping around. Yeah, not much else to say here. In terms of me getting to... Okay, so this was my, second Joule mission. Yeah, I don't know why I said it like that. It is my second Joule mission because the last challenge was my first Joule mission. So I did a little bit better with my Tylo capture, but then it still wasn't great because I realized that the Tylo capture just, it wasn't working for me. So, because when I went to get round to that Tylo capture, I could just not avoid getting a Vall encounter, which would always mess up my orbit. So, instead, I decided that I was going to instead do a lathe capture. I said instead there twice. I don't know why I did that, but you can see that now I've got a Tylo encounter, but then I went back. I actually had to load a quick save quite a few times here, and I cut out quite a bit of footage. So as you can see, there I'm getting a lathe encounter, and I'm just going to use that to do my circularization. Or circularization? No, capture around Joule. So you can see here that I just play with a maneuver node, and eventually my orbit comes around, and I get captured. There's not a huge amount to say there, but what I originally tried to do is I tried to get a Tylo capture afterwards, but I realized that it was just straight up garbage. Tylo capture to circularize, of course, but I realized it was just, it was garbage. So there's my lathe assist right there. So as you can see, I did it again where my orbital height wasn't quite as high, so I would miss that Tylo encounter. And then this way, I could just go directly to Vall. It was a little bit more expensive, but, less hassle, which is... I did over-engineer this craft quite a bit because I didn't anticipate how easy it would be to eject from Joule with Tylo. So I did a really, really great Joule ejection using Tylo gravity assists. It was you'll see at the end of the video. It's just it's gorgeous. Got to keep that viewer retention there, as you can see. So now I'm just raising my periapsis up so that my orbital line sort of intersects and gets a Vall encounter, which you can see there now, and sort of just do a quick adjustment to make sure I've got a pretty low equatorial orbit. And now that adjustment is done, just about, there it is, yeah, I can now time warp around to Vall and just do a circularization using the nuclear engines. As you can see, this was a lot better than my last Vall mission. If you remember from last week, that it was garbage. It took like 1,200 meters per second of delta V for me to circularize at Vall. So that didn't happen this time because I got better at the game, apparently. No, I don't know. That sounds really cocky, but no. It's just because I got a little bit luckier, I think. And anyway, you can see that burn happening right now, I guess. So so let me add a little bit of backstory here. It's New Year's Eve, or it's not New Year's Eve, it's sort of New Year's, and the Kerbals back on Kerbal realize that they don't actually have enough mint ice cream for their New Year's party. So it's sort of a bit of a panic for a second to try to organize a mission to Minmus, but then they realized that they could just, instead of trying to bring back some ice cream from Minmus, they could just take their party all the way to Vall, which is basically Minmus's larger cousin. So there's more mint ice cream, and I mean, everyone is there, I guess. So here you can see me just landing. I must say, this is one of the better landings I think I have ever done in my history of Kerbal Space Program. As you can see there, it was, yep, absolutely textbook. Anyone trying to learn how to do a landing on Vall should follow that. Okay, and as you can see, now I need to EVA all 21 Kerbals, which is a metric royal pain in the ass. So, I'm just going to speed that up a little bit, so that you don't have to, watch me EVA 21 Kerbals. And I think when I'm EVAing them back, I just cut it out completely. It's a lot. It took me a long time to do this, just because, I don't know. 21 is too much. So, there's not a huge amount to talk about at this point. I'm trying to think of something to say. So, we can see that they're almost all completely out, and we can see Jebediah up at the front there is already enjoying his mint ice cream a little bit. So, well, I mean, 2021, I think a lot of people say it's going to be a better year, and, well, I agree, it's going to be better than 2020, probably. I mean, you can't do much worse than 2020, but, I mean, we don't have the vaccine completely yet, so, at the beginning, at least, it's not going to be great. So, as you can see, all the Kerbals are now transferred, and now I am just performing my Vall ascent. There was sort of a mountain right to the left here, and I didn't particularly want to hit it, so I sort of burned upwards just a tiny little bit before I completely started burning flat. And as you can see, I got a very, very close approach right off the bat, and I'm very proud of it. So, as you can see, that's an absolutely beautiful shot there. Just jewel rising over thing there. That's absolutely thumbnail worthy. Yeah, and it was probably in the thumbnail. I'm not sure. I might have decided on something else, but that was probably the thumbnail. So, as you can see, I'm just circularizing around Vall using that Wolfhound engine, and I must say, I am very happy with that Wolfhound engine. I probably could have gone for something with a slightly higher TWR, but a TWR of 4 is pretty good, I think, for Vall. It's fine. It was fine in the end. And as you can see, some of the more keenly-eyed people in the audience might have seen that I royally screwed up my orbit, and I'm orbiting actually against the rotation of Vall. So, not the most efficient thing, but this lander had more delta V than it needed. As you can see, I was left with around 500 meters per second by the end. So now you can just see me doing my rendezvous by just killing velocity relative to the target, pointing at the target, burning a little bit, rinsing and repeating, and then just having the two ships target each other. There's actually a probe core on that interplanetary stage, if you're wondering why it's able to control itself. That is why. So just have the two things target each other, and then they maintain docking alignment, and then they're docked. Then I can just transfer all the fuel from the lander into the interplanetary stage, just to get a little bit of a kick out of that. And I also had the engine and sort of lander part of the lander detach. But as you can see, it is a very, very unstable craft to turn around. So I actually anticipated this, and I brought along an engine. Well, I brought a lot of engineers, but I brought some struts in that command pod that I can do the. This is probably my favorite thing to do now with interplanetary vessels, is strut them together on the docking port. It's so much easier. I love 1.11 for KSP. It was a great update. So, as you can see, I've detached that lower part of the lander, and now I'm just left with the Kerbal entry vessel. And now, as you can see, I am about to do that famous Tylo thing, Tylo ejection that I was talking about in the beginning of this commentary. So, I just needed to time warp around until I was at a optimal transfer window from Vall to Tylo. So I actually did two different. I switched my transfer window because the first one was garbage. Because it ended up ejecting me on an orbit that was higher than Joule's orbit. Absolute garbage. So then I went for a second one, and this one actually put me on a very, very good orbit with my periapsis pretty much on Kerbin's orbital line. So, as you can see, I am now about to complete that, well, I'm about to start that ejection burn from Vall. Is it Vall or Vall? I feel like I've heard it been pronounced both ways. It might be a British thing to say Vall. I truly have no idea. So anyway, as you can see, there's my ejection burn from, I'm going to say Vall, I think. I like that better. I don't really care what the correct version is. I'm going to say Vall. So there's my ejection complete, and now I'm coming around to Tylo, and I've got a very, very nice close approach. You can go ahead and wave to the surface, to all the little aliens on the surface. And, well, as you can see, there's my orbit, and I must say, it was on point. I just need to do a quick adjustment so that I have... What am I trying to say? I don't know what I'm trying to say. So that I can get a Kerbin encounter. I think that's what I was trying to say. So, anyway, there you go. That's a textbook ejection from Joule, using barely any delta V. And as you can see, I'm left with, 2,000. I'm getting closer to my screen here, trying to see what the number is. I think it's almost 3,000 meters per second delta V. And then just completing that adjustment so that I can little bit brute force a Kerbin encounter and then sort of adjust it so that my orbital line intersects with Kerbin's surface. It's probably not good to have it intersect with Kerbin's surface because the Kerbals, they have very high G-force, but they don't care about G-forces. They're very, very hardy creatures. They like space. They like the G-forces, the thrill. It's fine, but yeah, with G-force blackout on harder versions, I think it's better to have it just intersect the atmosphere, and that way you don't get as high G-forces. But as you can see here, I've separated and I'm inflating the heat shield there, and for New Year's, I'm going to do some mighty nice fireworks. Not gonna lie, those are probably the best fireworks I have ever done, and as you can see, that entry vessel is not stable whatsoever. And I'm sat here thinking, why is nothing blowing up? So, nothing blew up, and I have no idea why. I actually had to check to make sure re-entry heating was on max. And as you could see there, it was on max. So, I don't know why I can never deploy that heat shield just right so that it leaves the entry craft. But whatever. Anyway, this is, it's basically the end of the mission by now. Now that that heat shield is now deployed and the parachutes have also deployed, I guess. I don't know what I was trying to say there. But yeah, that heat shield was destroyed. And with that, I would like to thank you all very much for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. And with that, 'twas I, Root -1, signing out.